Tuesday, January 27th. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, the little engine that could kill.
Let's do this.
My DS hadn't been getting a lot of love lately. I mean, I actually took it out of my bag like a month ago, and I stopped bringing it around with me because the only game I owned that I hadn't already played that I wanted to play was Castlevania, and I don't know, I got about halfway through, and then I suddenly got intensely full of apathy toward the game. Like, it was weird. I was playing, I was enjoying it, I beat, like, this one really hard boss, this big tall guy who punches things, and I got a little bit further, then suddenly I was fighting the next boss, and I just, like, put the game down and didn't pick it up for like 3 weeks.
That happened to me with, BioShock. I got to a certain point where everything was like covered in plants, and I was just like, I don't care anymore. It also happened to me I was playing Symphony of the Night in a PlayStation emulator on the PC, and I got to the Upside Down Castle, and then I beat like a couple bosses, and I was just like, I'm done. I didn't actually say I'm done. I just sort of stopped playing and didn't feel like I wanted to keep playing.
Yeah,
even though when I played, it was pretty great.
It's weird. More and more, like, I feel like my gaming tastes are, I don't know if I want to say maturing, but when I was a kid, maybe it was just because I had more free time, and I had, like, at any given time, I had, like, 10 Nintendo games I hadn't beaten that I owned, and I was willing to continue to play them all, oftentimes playing the same level over and over and over again for months at a time.
Yep.
Until I beat them. But now, like, I'll play a game, and if I don't get enough novelty out of it in a certain amount of time, like, this meter of fatigue is constantly going up the longer I'm playing, but there's also this novelty meter that's going up. And if the novelty meter doesn't get high enough before the fatigue meter maxes out, I suddenly don't care about the game anymore, and I quit.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're playing Mario, right? Okay, so there's all the things Mario does, all the mechanics of the game, right? Jump, get big, firepower, star, bad guys, vines, right? But after level 4, right, you've seen everything there is to see. You've seen the flying fishes, you've seen Nighttime, you've seen Locky 2, you've seen Koopa, you've seen Hammer Brothers.
See, now at that point, the game, especially a simple game or a platformer, has to kind of escalate to the next level, which is, we have given you all of the tools you need to succeed. Now, we are going to test your mastery of these tools increasingly until eventually you either fail or beat us.
Right, now the thing is, right, when, like, for example, look at the Castlevania, right? It's like, when you're in the upside right castle, you're getting all this stuff, new weapons, new abilities, like turn into a bat and shit like that, right? When you get to the upside down castle, you don't really, I mean, there must be new stuff somewhere, but really it's just using the stuff you've got. So eventually it's like the level is just more and more of the same, even though it's harder, and the mechanics there aren't really new ones. So it's sort of like, even though there's a lot more game left, it's like, and the game that is a fun game, I've done it enough to where I don't really want to do it anymore because it's not a different it
but
than it
at
was
the same
2
time,
seconds ago.
I've noticed something kind of interesting, that this has rarely happened to me when I'm playing more than 3 or 4 games simultaneously. Like, if I've got 4 or 5 games that I'm actively playing, I never get tired of them because I'll play one, and if I get a little bit of fatigue, I'll just play NS instead of Tribes, or I'll just play Counter-Strike instead of Civ 3, for example. But now, especially on the DS, I've only really got this one game that I'm playing, so if the fatigue's up, my choices are either continue to play or not use my DS and do something unrelated to gaming.
Well, I pre-ordered the Fire Emblem DS, which is finally coming out early next month.
Yeah, I'll probably just pre-order it too so we can play it quickly and then talk about it.
I've been doing the Japanese coach on the DS, which is pretty good.
Yeah, I gotta borrow that when you're done with it.
I don't know if I'm gonna be done with it. I mean, it can teach you like thousands of kanjis.
So you think it's worthwhile?
I don't know. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but there isn't another DS. I mean, if you could find something else that does the same thing, maybe not for the DS, it might be better.
There's some really bad JavaScript web pages.
I mean, it's pretty sad, but it's like it does teach you to. I mean, I'm learning the kanas. It works,
But anyway, to skip to this because we have news and stuff, and we really got to talk about what we're talking about tonight. It's
people saw it in the show title.
Yes, I know, but we have to talk about it in that they do not know what we have to say about it. But anyway, what I realized while I was playing this was that despite the one thing that this Castlevania has, the current one, the newest one on the DS right now, with the runes and the girl and everything, is that I think it is the most perfectly put together side-scrolling, modern synth Symphony of the Night Castlevania game ever made. However, they've pretty much removed exploration from the game 100%. It is basically a fighting puzzle game. Not as in you are fighting and solving puzzles, but as in it is a series of encounters, fights, which themselves are minor puzzles. You have to figure out the best way through each encounter. And it removed like all the leveling up bullshit, and it really kind of pared down to where every item you get is useful. And there's a lot less of that really lame secret BS like, there's a thing with numbers on it, and if the last 3 digits of your gold match the numbers, the door opens, and you get a kajigger.
Oh, God, yeah.
They got rid of a lot of that.
I hated that shit.
So, but at the same time, I kind of liked the exploration. Like, I wandered
Well, I
around.
like the Metroid-style exploration,
Which
but I
is what
don't like
made-
the stupid secrets. I like the cool secrets, like whip the wall that is obviously has a crack in it.
Yes, not like find obscure secret from GameFAQs and then implement. But it's a great game, and I love it. But at the same time, it's a tight race between the fatigue meter and the completed game meter right now. I hope I beat it because I don't know.
I'll play it when you're done, I guess. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll talk about it eventually. I don't know. Lately, we have these moods, these trends, and right now, the trend in my life is really anime role-playing games.
Yeah, that's what I'm into right now.
And, we've had these, it comes in and out. I mean, we'll have times where it's board games and nothing but board games for a month straight.
Yeah, I'm doing some board games lately.
And then suddenly we're watching movies again, and it just jumps around. But right now, I'm all about the role-playing games in a big way. So I'm kind of looking forward to the New York Comic Con. Because we're going to hang out with Luke Crane again. We're going to pester the PA guys. But anyway, you got any news?
News. Okay, so games for Windows, right? You know about this?
What in particular?
Well, do you know what games for Windows is?
It's games for Windows.
No, that's not what it is.
No?
No.
But nominative determinism, that's
Right.
what it must be. It
No.
can be no more or no less than that.
So Microsoft, they label certain games with games for Windows, right? And they have games for Windows Live, which is basically use your Live account, which is also an Xbox Live account, right? And it's basically sort of Xbox Live features on the PC. And a few games support this. Every other game uses Steam because it's basically Microsoft Steam is really what it is.
Yeah,
right?
now if Steam integrated with this or it integrated with Steam, I'd be all on board.
Well, I mean, Fallout 3 uses it. So I launch Fallout 3 in Steam, but Steam only acts as a launcher. But it also does its overlay on top of Fallout 3. But then also in Fallout 3, I can push the live button to go open up the games for Windows Live. So it's not an integration.
Yeah, but I feel like if Steam just integrated, I like the features of Xbox Live. Like I look at what it does, and I would enjoy it. I would use it.
The thing is, right, games for Windows Live is like this pale imitation that barely implements any of the features of Xbox Live.
Well, thus the problem.
It's basically a complete failure on every level. And in fact, in Microsoft's recent layoffs, they laid off the guy who was in charge of games for Windows.
So I guess the news is this isn't going to get any better anytime soon.
Well, it's a question of, is it going to get better if they're going to get a new guy and try again and do it properly, or is it dead and is Steam just now the king, right? And that's sort of where we're going here. And really, I'd sort of like to see games for Windows. I don't know why they did that. They should have just called it. Basically what they should do is they should just let you buy a thing for like $150 that basically turns your PC into an Xbox if it's powerful enough. I mean, when you write a game for the Xbox, you program with this Microsoft XNA platform, DirectX and some other things. So you program a game, and then you basically push a button and barely change any code. And if you did it the Microsoft way, you'll have your game working on the 360 and also the PC. Obviously, you have to put in some changes, for controllers and stuff like that, but it's not significant.
But I honestly, in the long run, I really do foresee Microsoft going in a direction like that. Like my vision, my idea.
Well, Microsoft has always wanted, the open gaming platform where just, but every time anyone has ever tried to make an open gaming platform, it has been a complete failure.
Part of it, I think, is that the gaming community has always reacted with immediate and violent disapproval. I mean, I remember way, way back, before the Xbox actually came out, when the original Xbox was kind of Microsoft's making a game, kind of like back in the day when we were all Nintendo gamers and the news was like, Sony's trying to make a game console. Isn't that cute? But little did we know. But the thing is, back then even, Microsoft was like, consoles shouldn't be the way they are. They should be a commodity that is generic and uniform, and just anyone makes them, and then everyone makes games for this one platform.
Right.
And Nintendo said, but we live in a castle made of money. Why would we open the door to our castle? And Sega said, well, our money castle kind of burned down, but...
Well, I think the two problems here are thus, right? Number one, if you look at like the Philips CDI or... I don't know, the 3DO, right? Those are open platforms. Anyone could make a 3DO. Anyone could make a Philips CDI, right? That's why there's so many different ones, right? What happens is, number one, the people who, like Philips, right, would charge a license fee to anyone who made a CDI. So what reason is there to make a CDI machine if you're going to have to pay this license fee? You're just going to have to make yours expensive and more expensive than Philips's one, and no one's going to buy it because everyone's going to buy the cheapest one.
In the case of Philips, one thing that Nintendo has always done very well, and they were part of the reason why video games came out of that crash of the Atari era, was that they really nurtured and took care of what games were available on their system, and they made sure that there were enough high quality, Nintendo seal of quality, good games to make it a success, to where there would always be some good games on the system. But Philips basically said, yeah, you bums, make some games.
Also, when the big money, I mean, most of the consoles, right, except for the Wii,
big prizes.
What's wrong with you? They are sold at a loss. They sell the Xbox 360 at a loss. They don't profit when they sell that. The PS3 is sold at a huge loss. Not as huge as it used to be, but still, so if you're a company that's getting license fees from the games, right, then you can sell your console at a loss, a low price that everyone will buy it at. And then when people buy games, you make all your money back because anyone who makes a game has to give you money. If you make a PlayStation game, you got to give Sony money. If you make a Nintendo game, you got to give Nintendo money, right?
Now, here's the thing. With modern consoles, the hardware that is able to be used effectively by developers is becoming more and more affordable because we're hitting a lot of limits of game development where to really utilize the hardware, the cutting-edge hardware that was in these consoles when they came out, the next couple of generations might not get you monetary returns in terms of making money from games.
Well, I think what it is that if you have an open platform, right? For example, the PC, when you make a PC game, you don't have to give a license fee to anyone, not to Microsoft, not to, anybody, right? So an open gaming platform means more expensive consoles, right? And nobody makes money from the games except for the game makers. The person who designs the consoles or makes them, doesn't make them. So doesn't get money from the software unless they also make software. So really, it just can't compete with, the closed console platform where the console is such a low price, sold at a loss, and anyone who makes a game for the console has to pay a license fee to the person who makes it.
Well, I guess I could really see Microsoft pushing for eventually they sell an updated Xbox every 5 years or 6 years or whatever. I mean, we don't even know how long this console generation is going to last. And
probably at least 5 years from when it started.
I feel like the drop dead date at the end of this generation keeps getting pushed back by a lot of things.
I'm thinking like 11, 12, maybe 13 even.
Yeah, because the GameCube generation was like when the GameCube came out, like people were already rumbling about what was going to come next.
Mm-hmm.
This time there wasn't as much rumbling other than there's going to be a PlayStation 4, OMG. But I feel like what Microsoft would like to do is every 5 years, 10 years, whatever, release this is the reference Xbox, and then at the same time release a thing where if you've got a Windows computer above these requirements, it is also an Xbox.
I know, that's what I'm saying, right?
Yes.
People, even though the PC, right, has the problem of it's an open platform, so they don't, you don't make money from the games and whatever, right? If they put out a thing that lets your Windows just any Windows computer play Xbox games, first of all, they'll get a lot of people back into Windows away from the Mac and the Linux that are eating up at them, right?
Yeah, but they don't lose the non-PC gamer, I just want a console that I plug into my TV market at all.
And people are willing to pay a bigger price for a computer that also does other things than they would be willing to pay for, a sold at a loss console.
And Microsoft could get a lot of PC part manufacturers on board because then they can start selling their crazy video card, making Xbox games faster.
Yeah, it's like this video card guaranteed to play Xbox games, that sort of shit, right? So yeah, and they've already got the Xbox controllers and the games for Windows Live. It's just they really bombed at it, and they could have gone all the way. Just had your computer do Xbox Live. The thing is, like Tycho was actually talking about how he asked some Microsoft people, like, what the fuck? Right? Because he had a problem. He signed into Games for Windows Live, and then his Xbox, which his kid was watching like Netflix streaming on, signed out because you can't be signed in two places.
Brilliant.
So Microsoft was like, what are we supposed to do about that? And Tycho's like, that's not my problem. It's like, your shit sucks. You need to fix that.
Think about the power that man wields. That all he has to do is mention briefly a minor issue he had with something related to video gaming, and the world has listened to him.
I think he called them and said, hey.
Oh, that's the fact that they would...
As what what you or I would do.
Yeah, but if I called Microsoft...
He called, the customer support and complained.
Oh.
The same as you or I would.
Oh, you're bursting my... I was going to make this really grandiose point, but never mind. Because clearly it's not true.
He's not... Yeah, it's not. It's in his post. You can read it.
Though, speaking of which, if you live on the East Coast and you've always wanted to see Gabe and Tycho, the Penny Arcade guys, in person, they're actually going to be at the New York Comic Con this year.
Yep.
Doing panels and stuff. They'll have a table. They'll be there. So we're going to be there too. But before you get your hopes up, we're not actually doing any panels or events.
We're just walking around.
Yep, we're going to be press.
Looking around, walking around, looking around.
We'll be there. I'm not even sure which days we'll be there. Scott and I might be there on different days. It's hard to say, but...
I think I think I'll be there Sunday because it's the quiet day. It's like at first I was going to go Saturday, but Saturday was my grandma's birthday party. So,
yep.
And also Saturday, I kind of realized that's the crazy, stupid day. Why do I want to go on Saturday?
Yeah, but at the
I
same
definitely
time...
want to go on Sunday, but maybe... Because I have a press pass, I could go on Thursday to the ICV2 action.
I'm kind of thinking about taking that Thursday off work. I kind of want to go to that because we get in.
Yeah, and I can also go Friday, before it's really rocking, and sort of when shit's quiet, maybe,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I kind of want to, especially because here's the deal. The only reason I'm talking about the New York Comic Con on a Tuesday night is that, one, we're going to be there even though we're not going to be there doing panels, and there's actually a funny story as to why we're not. Because you see, every year we just go as press to the New York Comic Con. We walk around, interview some people. Last year we played the WoW card game and discovered that it was terrible.
Yeah.
But the thing is, this year they emailed me not that long ago and were like, hey, so people were talking about you at PAX, PAX, the Penny Arcade Expo. And they said you did this crazy badass panel.
And PAX, is related to the New York Comic Con because Reed Exhibitions that does the New York Comic Con and the New York Anime Festival is also doing PAX East.
So they were like, do you want to come to the New York Comic Con? I don't think they realized, the guy who emailed me, that we perform like 8 panels every year at the New York Anime Festival, and we're already press at the New York Comic Con.
Mm-hmm.
So I responded, and I'm like, oh, you want us to do panels? Here is the list of offerings we have this year. And we have like 7 or 8 gaming or comic related things we could run. And he emails me back. He's like, oh, I didn't realize you guys were professionals. I'm sorry. You want to do stuff next year? It's a little late this year. Please come and be pressed.
Then
why
did you email us? It's like, what did you want us to do?
Oh, they wanted to put us in the podcasting alley, with the table.
We could do that.
Yeah, but I didn't really want... Basically,
I don't want to sit there all 3 days, though.
That's the thing. If we took one of those tables... Some smaller podcast that really, really wants to be there wouldn't be able to be there.
Actually, no, they don't have as many people. They got more tables than people in that area.
It depends. They
they definitely do have more tables than podcasts.
Actually, he gave me a list. They got a lot of podcasts.
Really? I saw the list was pretty short, but I don't know.
Maybe the list he gave me
I guess
was
we'll
not
find
the
out
list.
if we go look at the map.
But anyway, the result is next year, the New York Comic Con, we're probably going to be doing the same kind of stuff we do at PAX every year.
One thing I think was interesting is we were going to do a panel that was sort of like, comics for the manga reader and manga for the, non-manga comics reader, right? But I find it funny that on the schedule, Wizard, Wizard Magazine, and also, because they also do an anime magazine, Anime Insider or something like that, they're doing that exact panel from both sides. And I was like, is that a coincidence or what?
Well, we'll see how well they do it. Maybe we'll attend.
Nah, I don't know if I'll be there that day.
But regardless, the main reason I bring it up, since you probably won't find us at the con unless you either know what we look like or, more importantly, if you just walk around listening for us.
Yeah.
That's how most people seem to find us at conventions.
Mm-hmm.
But at the New York Comic Con, they're making a big deal about expanding their gaming content. There's going to be a lot of video game stuff and a lot of gaming stuff. And Luke Crane's going to be there with the Mouse Guard RPG.
He's going to be at the Mouse Guard RPG table.
And
with David Peterson.
If you're thinking about going, I'd say go for at least one day to check out the gaming content.
It's definitely a one-day con unless you're a crazy comics superhero nerd.
Yes, if you are really into comics.
Or unless you're really into, nerdy TV shows.
Yeah, but or you live, in New York City. You can just pop over there.
Yeah, why not?
But February 6th through 8th, so not this weekend, but next weekend, at the Jacob Javits Center in New York City, which is basically on the far west side of town in the middle of nowhere. There aren't even hobos over there. There's no food.
There's street meat and there's expensive food in the convention center.
Yeah,
suggest if you need food, get in a cab or a bus or something and get away from the convention center.
Because otherwise, you're going to be there, right? You're going to be hungry. The only food is either a fake Starbucks, the street meat outside, or there's going to be this waffle guy making waffles.
The closest thing you can get, the closest thing to the convention center that's not in it or a street meat is a McDonald's. So you need to go pretty far.
No. The problem is those waffles, because you'll be hungry and you'll smell these waffles and they will smell, the longer you are there, like the best food you have ever smelled in your life. They pump that smell around. We know a guy who's vegan. He's a comic artist. He was sitting across from the waffle stand one year, and he's vegan. He can't eat that stuff.
Why can't he eat a waffle?
Milk and eggs.
Okay.
So by the end of the con, he almost bought one. It smelled so good. But the thing is, they're $8, and they're just a waffle.
Yeah,
you will regret it.
Connecticut had great prices on the concessions. Remember that? They had I got the chicken fingers and fries, and they were they're $4. I was like, hell's yes.
Yeah, and even Otakon, despite it is still kind of a ripoff.
It's still a ripoff, but not as much as the Javits.
Well, Otakon has cut the prices in half over the years. They've done a good job of that.
They pushed it down, but not down far enough.
But anyway, New York Comic Con, we'll be there. If you don't go, you'll hear a lot about it, since we'll have those press things and we'll walk around doing the press thing. Maybe we'll record and or film things.
Maybe. We'll see.
But anyway, things of the day. Now, there's a lot of buzz about how those Final Fantasy Legend games, at least some of them, are going to be coming out in the U.S. at some point.
I think they've only mentioned number 2, which is sad because I like number 1 and 3 more, even though no one else seems to agree with me.
Because 2 was the best one, 1 was broken, and 3 was bullshit.
1 had an awesome tower, right? And 3 had your dad is a stealth bomber. Spoilers, but how awesome is that? Your dad is a stealth bomber. That's the best. What beats that? Nothing could possibly be more Japanese.
You know what beats that? Anything.
Everything.
Anything.
Nothing.
Everything? I see we're in accord.
Everything fails.
Anyway, my thing of the day, in case you have never seen this, is the first bit, enough to see what the deal was with the original Final Fantasy Legend 2. Now, there's a lot more to this story than meets the eye, and I want to kind of bring this up. You can do all the reading on your own if you're really interested in the history, but when I was a kid, Final Fantasy came out on the NES, and I thought it was the best game I had ever played. I loved the ever-living hell out of that game. And I beat it 4 times. I optimized. I figured I would go with all these different parties. I tried to beat the game with 4 white mages, found that's actually not that hard. 4 black mages.
It's hard in the beginning.
4 black mages? Nah, not happening.
Well, because you can't heal for shit.
Not only
at
that,
least with the white mages, you might not do as much damage right away.
Not only that,
but you can heal up, and then you can do more damage later.
It's not that you can't heal for shit so much as the fact that in the early game, You can't do damage. You can cast fire only so many times, and then you're left with a knife.
Yeah, that does nothing.
It takes more like 3
At least the white
rounds.
mage has like the hammer that does something.
Hammer's not that bad. Plus, at the
Yeah.
end, you get
I mean,
Thor's
it doesn't
hammer.
do as much damage as like Silver Sword, but it works.
Well, the Thor's hammer. But anyway.
There you go.
So, Final Fantasy was great. And then a long, long time later, Final Fantasy 2 came out on the SNES, and then 3, and then 7, and then I found out, oh, wait a minute, there was a real 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and all that business that you should already know if you're a gamer.
All these games have been remade plenty of times for the PlayStation, DS, and GBA, and everything.
But
so
there was
you've played them all by now.
But in the tradition of messing with American gamers, they took 4, called it 2. They skipped 5. They skipped 2 and 3. They took 6, called it 3. Then they called 7 7 for whatever inexplicable reason. They couldn't hide it anymore. But there were all these other games. There were Final Fantasy Legend games on the Game Boy and Final Fantasy Adventure games. I think there were 5 in total. Legend 1, Legend 2, Legend 3, Adventure 1, Adventure 2. And
Adventure 1 and Adventure 2 were actually Seiken Densetsu games, which is Secret of Mana series.
see, that's what I'm getting into. These games were called Final Fantasy in the US, but they were actually popular series from Japan rebranded to sell to the American audience that knew and loved Final Fantasy.
Yeah, we didn't have Secret of Mana yet, and they actually called it, they gave us Secret of Mana, which is, they didn't call it Seiken Densetsu, so.
They also reskinned a little bit to make the games look like Final Fantasy games, but Final Fantasy Legend 2 and 1 and 3 were actually from a series Saga. So Final Fantasy Legend 2 is actually Saga 2, The Treasure Legend.
Well, see, this is something, right? Is that you look at, say, the GBA, right? And the GBA was sort of really good at doing NES games and sort of okay at doing Super Nintendo games, right? So what did they do? They didn't really make a lot of new games for the GBA. They did a lot of SNES remakes. And on the DS, they're doing like N64 and SNES remakes and only a few new games, right? But for the original Game Boy, it was sort of behind. So they couldn't remake anything for it. So a lot of the GBA games were originals. And there were a lot more originals in the original Game Boy than there are on any of the future portable systems that came after it, because those got remakes of console games.
But Final Fantasy Legend 2 is memorable for many reasons. I mean, one, it is a game where, you have your theme music. It's a Final Fantasy-ish game, so your characters have a theme song.
The music, I hadn't heard it in so long, but as soon as it started playing, I was like, oh, fuck yes.
You know who did the music? None other than Nobu.
Nobu.
The same man who did the music for Final Fantasy. So, of course, it sounds similar. But this was a game where the bad guys are in a room plotting and I am eavesdropping. And suddenly I'll start hearing my music like I'm the heroes. And I think, all right, I'm going to bust in the door and here we go. We're going to kick the bad guys' asses. And suddenly they look up and go, what's that music? Oh, shit, the heroes are here. Let's get the hell out. And they empty the 3 treasure chests and leave. Like, damn it. The game is hilarious, and I don't know, maybe it won't stand up when I play it again, but feast your eyes upon the first bits of this game. And I point out that the mutants are sexy, the robots are awesome, monsters are awesome, but not actually useful to play.
I like them all. I like all the Final Fantasy Game Boy games, and I love the monsters. The monsters are cool.
But Legend 2 has a special place in my heart, and Apollo is a bastard.
Oh, and I like the boss of Legend 3, Zagor. He's very Cthulhuoid. He's a big blob with a bunch of mouths and tentacles.
But almost every Square boss in the early Final Fantasy games was either some amorphous blob or something weird
He
like
was a
that.
big blob with a bunch of tentacles, right? And like an eyeball. And then you cut him up a bunch. And when you beat him up halfway, he would change and all these mouths would appear. And then you would beat him up and then he would die.
All right, so what do you got for me, Captain Coffee?
So, there's this game that's been, getting a lot of press around the blogs and such called Gravity Bone. And I saw it, and I said, I'm going to play that eventually. So I played it. And it's an FPS, it's a little indie FPS, independently made. It takes about 10 minutes to play if you have any FPS skills. But actually, even though it is very small, it is so slick and so well designed. There are only 2 minor flaws in it. But one thing about the game is that it has executed the chase scene like no other game I think I've ever played. It actually has an amazingly high quality chase scene, and I realized not a lot of other games just either completely bomb the chase scene or don't have them. And I think a chase scene is something that would be really awesome in games, because it's really awesome in this one. And this game is 10 minutes long.
All right, I haven't played it yet, but on a scale of Dino Run.
Dino Run?
Dino Run's a chase game.
Well, I mean, it's not as long as Dino Run, so you're going to be done with this in like 10 minutes.
Nah.
But it's better than Dino Run.
I just wonder.
Plus, this isn't a chase where you're being chased. It's a chase where you're chasing something. It's completely different. You know, being chased by something, a lot of games do, actually. But chasing after something else, right? Most games that do that, either A, the thing that you're chasing is sort of programmed to stay a certain distance ahead of you, so it's sort of scripted, right? Or the thing just gets away from you unless you, like, do some incredible time run, and it's annoying.
Or it's like a lot of 3D games will have where you have to chase an object or a guy. But they just kind of have the arrow, and you just kind of follow the arrow.
Right.
It's not really a fun
What
chase.
this game does is it actually does do the scripted chase, but you don't realize it because it's so well paced and such. And you really feel like you're chasing it and trying to keep up with it, and you're, you know, doesn't feel like a time trial, but it doesn't feel like a stupid scripted thing either. It's pretty good.
So anyway,
It's free, play it.
we over the weekend got together with the Front Row crew, and we engaged in a gaming experiment.
Right. So I was on Boing Boing, and I saw this link to a role-playing game, a free indie role-playing game. A lot of people do these nowadays, where you just download a PDF, print it out, and congratulations, you've got a role-playing game, right? Because a role-playing game is just a book, right? You don't need, you know, if you need stuff, it's usually dice and pencils and character sheets, all of which you can print. So there's no reason to actually need anything physical for a tabletop role-playing game, as long as you got dice already. And this game didn't even need dice. It needs nothing except the paper that you print out. So I'm like, hey, this game looks pretty interesting. I'll print it out. Let's try it. We need exactly 8 people, and we can only play it once.
Now, the title, if nothing else, implied to me
I really like the title.
that this would be awesome. I mean, the little engine that could kill.
The little engine that could kill. And I mean, I like the little engine that could. So, little engine that could kill.
I think I can. I think I can. I think I can.
Yeah, that's like one of the best parts in Dumbo anyway. So,
But the deal with this game was that, now, don't worry, if you're worried about spoilers, there will be a spoiler line in the show.
yeah.
So in case you actually want to play this yourself, but we'll review it so you can make an informed decision as to whether or not you want this game spoiled.
So the deal is, it's a railroad murder mystery, you know, Orient Express type action. So that's already plus points, right? I love that action. Who doesn't love that action? I don't know anybody who doesn't. Anyway, at least I don't know anyone cool who doesn't like that action.
Agatha Christie style all the way, crazy elaborate murder mystery. Let's go.
Yep. So the way the game worked, the thing is, the game works like this. There are 8 characters, and there are 8 packets. You print out the 8 packets, right? And you give a packet to each player, and then everyone reads their packet. And then when you're done reading the packet, you're supposed to just know what to do, and you'll role play and then come to the conclusion, right?
Now, think about that. That is a very interesting idea. This is something that games like Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles used to minor effect, but the idea that you have a bunch of players who may have different information from one another. This takes it one step further in that all information is given individually to players. So for all you know, the rules could have been different for different players.
Yeah.
For all you know, your piece of paper might have said, you're the murderer, here are the things to lie about, here's the deal. It could have said, everyone's the murderer. It could have told all the players they're the murderer.
Yep.
It could have done something crazy.
So the first page in the book is a cover that sort of hides everything from everyone else. The second page is your rules, right? Your personal rules. So I got the rules for the conductor here, right? And this is what I'm just going to summarize them, right? Don't show your packet to anyone else. Don't read directly from your packet. You know, role play your character. You know, say I. Don't say my character. Right. If someone asks you a question and the answer isn't in the packet, just make something up that makes sense. There might be science fiction in the story. Just let it go. Lie with caution, because someone will catch you, because a lot of the packets have, corresponding information. You may not lie about something you heard someone else. Some things you may not lie about and some things you may lie about. So the only thing there is, there's no GM for this game. So you have to sort of police yourself about the lying and the not lying, because you don't know. You have these are your personal rule sheet. Maybe someone else is allowed to lie about things or isn't, so no one else can police you. So you just have to sort of follow this rule sheet on your own.
Plus, I just like the idea that you have these 8 secret pieces of information. You give them to 8 people, gaga, and then theoretically, at the end of that, a game will emerge. I feel like this mechanic could be used to make a really, really interesting game.
And it's like, I didn't want to spoil the game because, like, if I had read it in advance, I felt like that would sort of ruin it. So I sort of didn't read anything, and I handed out all the packets. I told everyone the very minor amount of information I knew about the game, and I said, all right, let's go. So everyone started reading, right?
So I'll kind of paraphrase my experience here. Again, no spoilers, don't worry. But
well, the first problem, right, I think, was that people read at different speeds and not all the packets were the same length.
Yeah, like
so
one packet was like 15 pages longer than
mine
another
was 12
packet.
pages, right? So some people who read slow and got bigger packets didn't finish when we all started at the same time. So I guess that could be solved by everyone reading in advance, and I guess that could be good if you gave more lead time on it. But I sort of like the everyone reading it at the same time thing that I think that really adds to the experience in a way.
Well, it did in a way, because you see what happened. We're all sitting there reading our packets. And after about 45 seconds, someone in the room goes, huh?
And then people just started having reactions, like they would giggle or they would go like, what the fuck?
See, that was the thing. I was worried when, after about a minute, an unnamed person said, what the fuck? And then I look up and I'm like, all right. And of course, having read mine, I was trying not to react, but
yeah, because I didn't want to give anything away that was on my secret sheet. So I was trying not to,
As other people started reacting, it became impossible not to react, because I started to get the impression that perhaps the experience that everyone else was having reading their packet was similar to my own.
Yeah, see, everyone giggling was sort of making me not be able to focus so much, so I went upstairs to read mine, and that, I was able to actually pay attention to what I was reading more, and that didn't help.
Yeah, you see, it got to a point where I looked up, and I looked at everyone in the crew, and I said, I am not going to try to spoil anything for anyone, but the word penis has appeared for the 3rd time on the first page of my packet. How does anyone else feel about this?
See, mine had some nasty shit, but it didn't actually have the word penis. So I was just like, wow. I guess I don't have the worst one. The thing is, mine was pretty bad.
This is when someone suggested, and I'm paraphrasing here, Scott, are you sure this is a game? Are you sure this is not just a collective goatsy that we have all been tricked into?
See, that's the thing is, on the one hand, right, this is a game that sort of defies the demo, right? It's like you have to just go for it. You can't, test it before you try it, right? Well, you can't try before you buy. You just got to buy. Otherwise, you ruin it. If it was good, I would have ruined it by reading the packets beforehand. But by not reading the packets beforehand, I read them and then find out that they're all fucked up and crazy.
So we're about to spoil. So if you really care, you can stop listening in a second. But I will say this. If you listen no further, this game, terrible is not a word, because it does not do how bad this is justice. This is an abomination to man and God.
Right. So basically the first problem I had, right, was that every character was despicable. Now, there's nothing wrong with having
despicable and, to a degree, disgusting.
Yes, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a despicable, disgusting character in an RPG. They can be quite good, right? And in a murder mystery, the murderer being despicable, pretty good. Or in fact, having a despicable person who's not the murderer, very good, because that throws you off, right? But everyone hated their characters with a passion, just about. So my guy was a piece of shit. I was the conductor. I was like, wow, this guy is terrible. He's like the worst person. He's just disgusting. So I was like, I don't want to be this guy. It made me feel bad reading about this guy because I was supposed to be him. So every time I put myself in his shoes, I was like, oh, fuck, get the hell away from me.
So, I mean, the best way to take you through my experience was, I opened my packet, and it starts out really strong because I was the violinist. It says, you are the violinist. And it gives me this basic information. On Wednesday, August 5th, 1932, you and 8 other passengers boarded a 3-day express train from Bombay, India to Lisbon, Portugal. Unfortunately, one did not survive the journey. It is now up to you and the 7 passengers left, even though that's wrong, to decide.
No, there are you and 7 passengers left.
Oh, yeah. To decide who killed the 8th. That is
Wrong,
wrong.
who killed the 9th.
And then it tells me to read my backstory and all this. And the next page is a map of the train. And I look and, oh, I have my own quarters. All right. There's a peasant. I see the Lord and the tennis star. I see the staircases. There's the bar car. There's the cigar car. Here's where all the doors are. All right, cool. I can dig this. And I didn't know if I was a man or a woman or anything. I didn't know if that even mattered. I'm going to read the first bit of my backstory. And you will see right away where my problem begins. The leather of his shoe feels cold and wet, likely due to too much shoe shine. You hate a man who uses too much shoe shine, but you smile anyway. He rubs his shoe a little higher on your leg.
All right.
And attempts to show you his pearly whites, except they aren't pearly white, and they barely make it out of the several layers of chins that line the lower half of his face. You shuffle your bar stool a few inches away, leaving his shoe to drop despondently and disappear beneath the seam of his finely tailored chalk-striped slacks. He doesn't so much as break eye contact. You hate it when men look at you like that, as if you were a prize to be purchased in one of their gala London auctions. Skip a bit, 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 skip a bit. You hate men, but you need money to get off this train. You let the businessman buy you a total of 11 martinis, the minimum number required to numb your senses enough to tolerate a night in bed with an ogre like him. Now, you would think that it was going to skip past the night in bed with an ogre like him to the next morning when I murder him or whatever. But no, I know exactly how big this man's penis is. In fact, it uses several analogies relating to avalanches of flesh surrounding tiny mine shafts with barely any silver to plumb. The page informs me, in no uncertain terms, that I don't feel bad about the fact that he doesn't pay me in the end, because his penis was so small that I barely even felt it. It was hardly even any work. There are like 15 more pages of this.
It's just disgusting.
It was terrible.
And the thing is, right, is my guy was the conductor, right? Basically, it starts out, we're like, aha, he's secretly working for Scotland Yard. All right. He's a stickler for the law, so he notices all these small legal infractions, or pretty much anyone doing anything that's illegal. He's like, aha, right? I'm like, okay, he's a little weirdo like that. The tennis star is like, super hottie with a giant rack, and this guy is totally a perverted voyeur, like sneaking in and taking photos of her and shit. And then he wants to get rid of, he's pretty sure she's doing it with everyone on the train, and she is, except him. And he wants to get rid of all those people so he can have the tennis star all to himself. And it's just like,
yes,
he has no problem. He's like, you're like, aha, he's an adulterer, so I'll get him. But he has no problem, like, getting rid of these people in order to be perverted and lecherous.
But like my character, the violinist, is actually a sex slave in control of the peasant and the barman being sold at the end of this train ride. And the peasant, let me tell you about the peasant. The description of his penis, and multiple characters get descriptions of his penis. I believe the words were slug-like, smelled like a mushroom. The smell of him is like a combination of urine and death. And the smell is described to the point that it is almost a ninth character.
Right, so I read the story, and it's just sort of perverted shit, right? And then eventually it gets to a point where the writing just like collapses to where it makes no sense.
They all kind of do that.
Every single person complained of the same thing in their packet. Basically, everything's sort of going along sequentially and slowly, right? And then suddenly everything just collapses into an incomprehensible heap. It's like you get hit over the head, and then you're in a closet, and then you see something, and then you smell something, and then something else, and then there's no transitions. Everything is rapid fire and nonsensical, and you have to just read it incredibly slowly, and even then it doesn't make sense. And, I guess the point of the game is that everyone is supposed to take these rapid fire nonsensical bits at the end of their packet and sort of combine them to figure out who the murderer was. You know, like, oh, well, you smelled that thing. Well, I saw that thing and
Yes.
smelled it also.
Mine was
So
all details of, you know, I had sex. I look up. The clock said 4:45. I walk outside. I hear a noise. I see this. I do that. Description of the peasant's penis again. I go here. I see these people. I look up. It's now 5:15. I walk over here. I do this. And the writing just got like crazier and crazier. And there were gems throughout mine. Like, eventually I find the abortion pills, which
I also found the abortion pills.
everyone finds the abortion pills or steals them or whatever. And it just so happens that if you take one, you get an abortion. If you take two, you die.
That's great.
And they're described in mine as, quote, the candy of the feminist movement, unquote.
Awesome.
Brilliant.
Brilliant
So-
indeed.
It turns out, basically, the barman, the guy behind this sex slave selling business, and the
Who acts
peasant
all Catholic.
who's working with them, it all comes together. I really felt bad for Adam, who played the Lord, because apparently the Lord is crazy and has like a war flashback. And like the last 8 pages of his is a nonsensical acid trip flashback through the war
Great.
that has nothing to do with the
Well,
game.
no, that it obviously it has parallels to the same trips that everyone else is having, you know.
But- And then at the end, you were presented as a player with the most contrived situation possible.
This is what really ruined it. When I read, I mean, it was already ruined, but when I read this, I was like, oh wow, it's like I knew that somehow when we got to the end of the packets, we would know what to do, because think about it, right? It's a murder mystery. Now think about other murder mysteries, like say Clue, right? There's a little envelope that has the answer in it. Well, in this game, there is no answer. There is no GM. There's no nothing. It's just 8 people with packets, and the answer is supposed to come out somehow. So there has to be some rules for when is it over, et cetera, et cetera. So I figured that would be at the end of the packet, and I was right. But what it was at the end of the packet was like the topper. It was like it was already poop, but this was like poop on the poop. It was the cherry on the diarrhea on the dung.
I really have to read this to you verbatim. Because
you do.
It is so contrived. And the worst part is, I thought I was the murderer because I looked like I killed the guy.
Well, you got to read the final
yes,
page.
a lot of people thought they were the murderer, except the magician, whose package said, "You are the murderer."
Did it really?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
But finally, basically, the gendarmes of France appear eventually.
Those are French police. Someone actually didn't know. I forget who.
Actually, a few people didn't know.
Oh, okay.
I was surprised.
All right.
But you get around and they say, all right, they arrest everyone and they pull the dead body out. And it says the following. The gendarme speaks. He says that France has found judges to be corrupt and juries to be inept. Justice is becoming for the French as impossible ideal to unable to be implemented from the crooked benches of its more crooked courts. The writing, by the way, is awful, just so you know.
If you haven't noticed.
The country has left justice in the hands of you 8 passengers. It is your duty to reach a verdict. It is your duty to make France proud again. A vote can be taken at any time in secret or by a show of hands. In order to reach a verdict, the vote of conviction must be no more than 1 shy of unanimity. France will only accept 1 guilty party, and that guilty party must be sitting at this table right now, must be alive. Anything less will reflect shame and dishonor upon the good people of France. Upon the arrival of an acceptable verdict, the murderer will be swiftly and, the gendarmes assure you, brutally disposed of. The decision before each of you is a simple interrogative. Who killed the barman? Now, here's the thing.
How contrived is that? It's so, oh, God.
And we didn't even role play. We all looked at each
We're
other.
like, just like, fuck this. We're not role playing.
And
this
I
crap.
proposed the following. The peasant is a piece of shit who sells women
Well,
as sex slaves.
Everyone is a piece of shit, but the peasant was the biggest piece of shit,
I knew-
regardless of guilt.
I knew particularly because my character was the least piece of shit. The worst I did was try to murder the barman who deserved it, and I kicked the magician in the balls twice.
My
because
guy was a piece of shit, but not a big a piece of shit as, say, the businessman or...
Oh my God, the businessman!
peasant.
Oh, Kate, it was hilarious because apparently he is crazy. He thinks like capitalism is the rule of the world, and he's just thinking about capitalism all the time.
Yeah, he's just like, oh, you commies. He's like the computer.
It's so crazy. Like, oh my God. But I proposed the peasant is the biggest piece of shit of everyone. I vote we all just say he did it, and that's the end. And everyone said yes.
Mostly because they wanted the game to end.
It wasn't even a game. It's not like it set up a role-playing situation. It was basically a bunch of gibberish that gave you a bunch of information, and then a really, really weak logic puzzle at the end, where theoretically you would like try to trip other players up because you know information and lie.
Well, because you theoretically, right? It's got the idea was that on the one hand, you're trying to share information to figure out who the real murderer is and solve the puzzle. But on the other hand, you never, if people are starting to decide that maybe it's you don't want that to be true, even if it is true. And the actual, you can lie about some things and not others, and such. So you're there's tripping up other people as well.
But it was so poorly written, so contrived, so poorly implemented. The writing was like, I don't think you understand how bad the writing is.
Worst.
I have seen fanfics that were much more well written than this.
This
Harry
is worse.
Potter
This is
was
like
better written than this.
This is one of the worst fanfics ever, basically. But it's not a fan of anything.
I don't think it was actually a game. I think whoever made it just wanted to trick 8 people into reading
There's
their
a reason,
terrible pornography.
Well, the price is too high. It's free. They should have paid people to play it because...
Even then, my time is worth more than that.
I've noticed this, though, right? The problem this game has, I've noticed with some other indie games, right? It's that it has some clever idea at the core, right? The actual premise is everyone reads something and then everyone role plays, and that could work, that mechanic, right? But the actual fundamentals, good writing, non-contrived situation, etc., they fail on all of those. Look at Dwarf Fortress, right? Really clever core idea. Dwarf sim with emergent, story. Problem, all the fundamentals of user interface and playability and all those things, complete fail, right? And there's lots and lots of other indie games, of all sorts, tabletop, and video that sort of have the same problem.
Well,
Whereas,
look, Multiwinia, the concept was great.
Yep.
The game looked cool, but you can't change your controls, and some of the networking doesn't work, and all right, game's already ruined. I can't change the controls.
Yeah, it's like they made this RTS where the idea of the RTS was good, but they failed to do something that fundamentally every PC game needs.
I can't change the controls.
Configurable controls.
That's bullshit.
And networking that works.
And even if the networking it worked, the controls.
Yeah, 2 fundamental basic things. And, if you look at like professionally made games aren't perfect. They also often fail at the fundamentals. But they fail at the fundamentals less, and usually most professionally made games have all the fundamentals just right. The games work. They're bug-free for the most part. They have configurable controls for the most part, right? Not so many glitches. But they have no core concept that's any good. They're like cookie-cutter crap. It's just another FPS, just another RTS, no clever idea, nothing interesting. Just, a cookie-cutter. We have the basics right, but we don't have anything else.
But then in a situation like this, or with Multiwinia, or
there
with
are, of course, exceptions on all sides, but...
Yes, but we have a lot of indie games where it's the exact opposite. Great idea, terrible implementation, still not worthwhile as a result.
Yep.
But, like, if you wanted me to go into the specifics as to why this game was bad, I mean, the characters had no... Like, if you really role-played it out, really, it's just going to come down to the peasant being executed in the end, because no player has any motivation other than to not be implicated, and they'll all just gang up on someone, and the peasant's the easiest one to gang up on, because he was friends with the barman.
Yep.
Who is dead.
Yep.
And you don't have to prove they did it, you just have to vote. That's the rule, so that's that. That's what we did.
Yeah, who
Peasant
cares?
was executed.
Who cares who really did it? That's, theoretically, my guy cares who really did it because he's also from Scotland Yard and is, pretending to be a conductor, But it's such a blur that out of, the meta fails.
2, most of the interesting role-playing that could have happened would have been in playing out the scenario. Instead, the whole scenario already played out, and you're just analyzing it. There's very little left to do.
And what you're analyzing, right, is such a mess that you just don't, it's just a chore.
The writing was bad, the details were too numerous and too useless and even a little inconsistent. There was no, bullet-pointed list of, these people, these facts. It was just like this
The
mess.
thing is, I feel like if you did that, the bullet-pointed list, that it would be too simple to figure out who did it, and you would rapidly, maybe within 10, 15 minutes, figure out who did it based on all those bullet points, and then it'll be over.
But at the same time, the bullet points, if you made the game to where you had motivations other than something so simple and
The
pathetic at the
character's
end,
definitely not much motivation going. I mean, my character's main motivation, right? It started out where he had dual motivations. He had the hots for the tennis star, but also he was working for Scotland Yard and he was investigating something for reals. Very quickly, as I read on, he mostly just cared about getting in the pants of the tennis star. And I was not motivated to do that. And that really didn't play into, the choosing who was going to get it, except for maybe I wouldn't vote for the tennis star because I want her to live. And maybe I would definitely vote for people who, she was getting with. That way I'd get them out of the way and make it easier for me to get with her. But other than that, the motivation didn't play into it at all.
The characters were so one-dimensional, it was painful. Like, an NPC in Burning Wheel that I roll up for one session is more multi-dimensional than these characters.
Yeah.
I mean, no beliefs, no instincts, no traits, no driving forces. So simplistic. And again, the writing.
I feel like if you got a good writer, like let's say, Neil Gaiman made one of these, it could be wicked awesome.
But
this one is ass.
This
and
basically,
the title was wasted on it.
It takes one of those, do the murder mystery over dinner boxes that you can buy in, gaming stores, and removes everything fun about it, removes the play out the murder part, has a trivial, contrived piece of crap at the end, and it takes so much investment in reading that it's pathetic. This needs to be burned. I'm sorry, whoever it is who wrote it.
It's a free PDF, though, so I mean, really?
But
can we complain? Yes, because we wasted time on it. But
yes, you should not waste time on this. Do not play this. Download it and read it to see how bad it is, but seriously, do not play it.
Yeah, a lot of people out there have trouble getting RPG groups just to play D&D, so I don't think too many people out there can get 8, people together for this.
Gaga. I mean, everybody was inside everyone else's wife, fucking everybody in everybody's room, fucking back door, fucking fish tank.
I think though I am gonna try to play a one shot of a different RPG every month or so, and I think next time I'm gonna do the Mouse Guard RPG. So
you know what? We're reading them from now on. I don't care.
Well, I'm not going to do any more that are secret like this. The Mouse Guard RPG is just Burning Wheel with Mouse Guard on it, so that shouldn't be a problem.
But this needs to be burned, and I think we can end on that. This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Odeo on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.